Welcome to The Kingdom Sleeps, the fantasy bedtime story decided by the roll of a dice. My name's Andrew, I'll be your story master for this evening.
And my name's Tom, and tonight I'll be playing the role of Yohm.
So this will be the final episode of what is the prologue of The Kingdom Sleeps, where we move away from the beginnings of Yohm's story and move into the wider story of Sopros itself. So we hope you enjoy this very special finale episode of this season of The Kingdom Sleeps.
And we have seen all of your comments in response to some of our questions on last episode, and we are very happy to announce that we have just launched our own Discord server. So we would be very delighted if you would join. All the details can be found in the description below. Can't wait to see you there.
Yes, very excited to see whoever's up for having a chat about the world of Sopros or just sharing their things they love about D&D over in the Discord. Thank you once again to everyone who's listening for coming along on this journey with us so far. We've really enjoyed telling the story, and we hope you've enjoyed listening to it. And with that, close your eyes, make yourselves comfortable, and join us where the kingdom sleeps. It has merely been a few hours since you travelled from the distant village of Sunalaga and entered upon the lively and vibrant desert city of Sunkolt, where in that short time you have met with friends, you have been invited to dinner with the highest member of the Harvesters Guild. You have commissioned a beautiful and potentially charmed set of robes from an artisan named Clara, who happened also to be a merfolk like yourself, and spoken with Master Helgara of the Guardians Guild, who promised to support your quest in stopping this campaign against the Mamu, provided you could secure her backing by the Servant Supreme of the Harvesters Guild, whom you will meet tonight. But before then, you've yet to meet a certain Mamu academic known as Eli Shinrick, in the hopes that he may shed light on some of these mysterious new connections you have with your friend Tonto and the Mamu in general. But in this moment, you stand upon the great white marble steps leading to the Guardians Guild, and you head now towards a group of young children. 3 children to whom Tonto has just ran off, seemingly elated by whatever activity they are undertaking. And as you approach and get that little bit closer, you see quite clearly now that they kneel on the ground with these peculiar metal and glass spinning tops in their hands. And as you watch, you can see that the children are filling these metallic cones, as it were, with water from little canvas pouches at their side, very, very delicately trying to fill it with just small amounts. And then as they rest them on their point on the ground, they try to angle the glass on top of these toys towards the sun, just precisely so, and successfully managing to do so, you notice as the sun shines into this prism, as it were, the toys begin to rapidly spin in a circle on their points, with this jet of steam coming out of a small spout on its side, propelling it round, much to the delight of the children and Tonto, staring with wide eyes. And as this toy spins, not only is its movement quite magical, the glass on its top begins to almost project these undulating patterns of light, what Tom, the player, might know as a hologram of sorts, of a Mamu flapping its wings, but certainly something that Yohm has never experienced before in his life, quite a unique sight. And at this point, Tonto, having just noticed you approach from behind, looks to you with his wide eyes and his even wider grin and says,
Yohm, come and look. Come and look. What is this?
I don't know what it is. It's magical, isn't it?
I've never seen anything like this. I told you it was good, didn't I?
And you weren't wrong. Looks like some creation of the artisan's guild, maybe. I'm not sure. Or some bright stone magic. It's something else. Excuse me, children, I'm sorry to bother you.
And one of the children knelt down, just precariously about to pour some more water into their toy, looks up and says,
Oh, hello. What do you want?
Hello, sorry to bother you here. What is that you're playing with down there? I've not seen something like that before.
Well, it's a spinning top, innit?
Not the way I know them. What are you doing with that water?
Oh, well, you fill it inside the hole, and then you catch it on the light, and, to be honest, I don't really know. It makes it hot, and then steam comes out. It looks really cool, though.
Yeah, yes, it does. I don't suppose, there's anywhere near here that you got these spinning tops?
I don't really know. My dad got them for me from the toy shop. It was my birthday.
That's mighty kind of him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's quite something special. I suppose it's similar to how we boil water, isn't it? But a very concentrated spot. And toy makers, something special.
The child listens to what you say and sort of furrows his brow, just shrugs his shoulders and carries on attempting to fill a very small amount of water into his toy. At which point, just from behind you, one of the tall, imposing, armour-clad guards of the Guardians Guild from before makes his approach towards you all. The same one you happen to have seen before, saying, I thought I told you, this is not the place for playing with toys. At which point one of the other children looks up and says,
But this is where the best light comes in. The sun just comes in perfect.
Well, I don't care. This is the Guardians Guild. Now be gone with you.
Now, Master Guard. Just relax a little bit. There's nothing unsafe about children playing on some steps, is there? Let them have their fun.
Well, I don't know about unsafe, but it might be inappropriate.
Come on, let them be. It's a couple of hours at most, the sun would have moved on.
As you say these words, one of the children, who've not yet spoken, looks up at you and to the guard with a big grin and says,
Yeah, Dad, let us be.
Oh, well, forgive me, sir.
No, that's all right. I think you're probably right. You got children yourself?
No, but I grew up with an awful lot of them around me.
It shows. Got a caring soul, you do. I can tell.
Oh, you must as well.
I try. Well, don't stay here too long, kids, alright? You'll be needing to get in for lunch soon.
Yeah, listen to your father. Don't want to get caught by a strange desert dagger now, do you?
And as you say these words, the kids begin to recoil into themselves slightly, looking around suspiciously, not having previously considered they may be attacked by a desert dagger. And they bundle up their toys and very quickly scarper off with deserting feet across the marble steps.
Well, not exactly the desired effect, but at least you'll have some peace and quiet now.
True enough. Always makes my job easier when I don't have to babysit at the same time. Have a good day.
And you. Thank you. And with that then, Yohm would collect Tonto and light down the stairs. Spend a moment just soaking that in and reassuring Tonto that if we have the chance, he will get in one of those spinning tops. But first, we need to find the Academy.
And so, Yohm, consulting his well-drawn map from Wren, will find very clear, marked directions towards where he believes the Academy is. And it's not very long, perhaps 10 or 15 minutes of travelling through the narrow, cobbled streets of Sunkolt before Yohm enters into a particularly narrow street upon which is marked on the map the location of Sunkolt Academy. But entering into the street, it almost seems like it might be incorrectly placed. It's very narrow, somewhat dilapidated. The buildings all quite closely packed together, and weeds growing up from the base of the buildings, some growing so tall that they start climbing up the sides to give this sort of long forgotten impression to the street. But as Yohm continues to walk down, this fairly unassuming building, clad with wooden panelling, and this simple blue wooden door, above which reads the sign Sunkolt Academy. And so, entering into the place, it's quite a contrast to the bright, fresh, sunny day outside, as you enter into this cramped, somewhat simplistic reception area. The blinds seem to be drawn, allowing little light inside, with a few lamps lighting the room. A wooden desk sits in front of you, with wooden-clad walls behind, upon which are a collage of picture frames and loose pieces of paper with sketches and writings. Behind the desk sits an old, fey-looking gentleman who sits with a book in hand, peering over the top of his spectacles, intently at the writing within. And without raising his eyes, says, "Yes, how can I help you?"
Well, good afternoon there, sir. I'm looking for someone by the name of Eli. I believe he works here.
And at these words, he very slowly raises his eyes from the book remaining in place in his hand, gives you a penetrating look. "Professor Eli Shinrick?"
Yes, that'll be the one.
"Curious. And what business do you have with the gentleman?"
Well, a dear friend of mine recommended him. I need to learn more about the Mamu.
"Well, he's certainly the man for that. He should be in his room, I think. Second door on the left, down the hallway." And his eyes return to his book, back to his previous position.
Yohm wonders for a moment if people like him are the reason this academy seems so forgotten. He turns to find the door to Eli Shinrick's room.
And just as Yohm turns and heads his way down the corridor pointed out towards the door, just hears the words behind him. "Good luck."
Thank you.
There is no response.
And he pushes on through.
As he heads down the corridor, equally confined and claustrophobic as the reception area, and gets towards the second door on the left, he'll notice a wooden door with a gold-plated panel reading Professor Eli Shinrick. The door being closed.
Before knocking, Yohm will turn to Tonto and just get down to his level. "So, Tonto, behind this door lies the man which Hana thinks will be able to tell us a little bit more about you and your magic. I get the feeling he might be a little strange. Knowing academic folk the way they are, he might ask a lot of questions. He might poke and prod. But remember, nothing bad will happen as long as we're here together."
Okay, I believe you. I'm really excited.
Something of the sort for me too. It's always good to know, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think we'll find out secrets?
Certainly.
And he has this bubbling excitement in his countenance as he looks up to you.
Well then. And he lets out a hearty knock.
The hearty knock, dush, 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 rings out in the comparatively stagnant and still environment of the academy around you. And as you knock, the door comes loose and opens of itself, just ajar. But there is no response.
Professor Shinrick?
Nothing.
Stay close to me, Tonto, as I gently pry the door open fully and look into the room without yet stepping through.
Gently opening the door wider, you are presented with a very large room, larger than the rooms you've been in so far. A study of sorts that is large, but at once cluttered as well. The walls lined with bookshelves and artifacts such as stones and statues and busts and dried herbs and roots that sit upon these shelves. Much more light coming through the windows here in this room too. So much so that you can see the dust that floats in the beams of light that jut onto the surfaces. And in the center of the room is a wide wooden table upon which appears to be a selection of scientific equipment, glass flasks and tubes, water in some with fire underneath bubbling through thin tubes that lead to others that seem to be condensing smoke in some way. But there is no one in the room at present.
Yohm would have a little nose round still, not prying too deeply, but definitely still picking up and investigating some of the more curious things in the room just a little bit longer, seeing if anyone arrives in the next couple of moments.
And as Yohm looks around the room, is there anything in particular that he hopes to find?
Of a surface level search, probably anything leading towards Brightstone.
Roll me an investigation, please.
And that'll be a 13.
With a 13, scanning your eyes around the room and seeing all these wonderful, what appear to be desert artifacts, your eyes eventually land on the table in the center with all of this equipment, where you actually see several pieces of quite small, chipped, raw brightstone, just laying loose upon the table. And next to this bright stone is something fairly peculiar. You see, suspended on a small wire rack, this short vial about the size of your finger, very thin and containing this black, iridescent liquid that, upon closer inspection, appears to be actually undulating slightly, moving inside of the vial very, very slightly, even though there doesn't appear to be anything outwardly affecting it.
This brings a thought to Yohm's mind of his journey into Sunkolt when he was riding his hound back with Tonto at his side, and off in the distance he saw at what he believed to be an old mine entrance, a dark amalgamation of something. And though it was quite far away, does this bear any resemblance?
To Yohm's mind, it would definitely bear a resemblance. It seems at least somewhat similar enough to make a connection in his mind.
And at the same time then, as these pieces start to fall together in his mind, he remembers the look on Kieran's face when he was sat upon his pretender throne, and the blackness in his eyes. Is that also the same?
To Yohm, yes. These things certainly, though slightly abstract, bear some sort of connection to each other. And as Yohm is drawing these dots together, almost slowly forming these three pieces to a complete puzzle just before the pieces touch, Yohm is jolted by a voice. Who are you?
Sorry, you startled me there, sir. My name is Yohm, forgive me.
And as you look up and say these words, in front of you, you see quite a slender monstrum gentleman, well dressed in a white shirt and waistcoat. Long, white hair, glasses, and what looks to be some succulent meal in hand, wrapped in a palm leaf, some kind of bread with thick cuts of meat inside, and a hefty smell of what Yohm will know to be something called Zaralith, a desert herb that is very aromatic and quite delicious, though slightly rare. And as he holds what is presumably his lunch in his hand, and scowls at you, looking to you, then to Tonto, back to you, lays his lunch quite anxiously down on a table next to him, wipes his hands across his trousers, and somewhat nervous, slightly shaking, steps towards you and says, "Oh, right, how can I help you, Eli Shinrick?" and extends a hand to shake yours.
Yohm returns it in kind. Says, I've just come from Sunalaga. one of my dear friends, I believe you've worked with her in the past. Her name's Hannah. She's a healer by trade. She says you're an expert on Mamu.
Hannah. Yes. We met in the desert during one of my expeditions. I don't know if I'd call myself an expert personally. I don't know if anyone is an expert in this world. Too many secrets in the Mamu. But, yes, I've studied them almost all my life. I see you bring one with you here.
Well, I almost want to apologize before I start telling you further, Professor. Would you care to take a seat? And have you got a moment? You're going to struggle to believe what I have to say.
Certainly. Do you mind? And he points over at his lunch on the table.
No, please do. I really don't want to intrude.
And he picks it up, takes a comfortable seat that sits in the corner of his room, lifting up his sandwich-like meal, and looks to you intently. Please, how can I help?
Well, as I said, my name is Yohm, and I do not belong to a guild. I'm one of the nomadic folk of the desert. I actually make a living helping people like you explore the secrets out there.
Glad to hear it. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm not fond of the guilds myself.
Well, Hannah actually failed to mention that, which is strange, as I am famed for not being the most in touch with them either. But nonetheless, on to more pressing things. It's going to be hard for me to explain this, but have you heard of what happened on a recent harvest expedition when they were attacked by a serpent-like Mamu?
I've not heard of this particular attack, no, but many like it, certainly.
Well, I believe this one was different for a few reasons. Namely, the Mamu, a big yellow one, it ingested one of the harvester's apprentices.
Ingested?
And simply swallowed him whole. Me included.
You were ingested by a Mamu?
Something like that, yes.
Fascinating.
According to the witnesses, there were many who saw it there, and what happened next was even stranger. After it swallowed us, we were seemingly transported almost into a different world. There was such wild plant life everywhere, and noises coming from creatures which I could barely imagine. And I followed in the only way I could go. And well, I've never seen anything like it, Professor. The world changed right before my eyes. There were trees taller than Sunkolt itself. There were birds singing, rivers flowing, and a strange structure made out of almost crystal. And within there, I found that lost harvester.
Tell me, did his eyes go black?
Yes. Yes, they did. And he was chanting some sort of gibberish, and there were Mamu with him, dancing, almost celebrating him. It was frightening, to be perfectly honest. And I'm not even sure how he came around, but anyway, I'm sorry, Professor, there's just so much, and whilst I was in there, in that almost crystal structure inside this giant Mamu, I saw a light, and I followed that light, and the source of it was this little guy. And then this little guy told me he had a name.
He told you?
Oh yes. His name is Tonto. And he can tell me things. And I him. And somehow, this little shining Tonto pulled Kieran, the harvester, out of that trance. And before I knew it, I was laying on my back, looking at the sky again.
And Eli looks at you with such wide eyes, almost dropping his lunch on the floor as he leans forward, listening so intently.
And I know they're not black, but, well, and Yohm leans in as close as is comfortable and peels down his eyelids. Well, my eyes have changed too.
And he stares right into your eyes, his own eyes getting even wider, if it is possible. His mouth open with shock at everything it is you've had to say, and then the sight of these Mamu pupils in that of a merfolk in front of him. Yohm, was it?
Yes.
Yohm, this is one of the most remarkable things I've ever heard.
Well, I'm afraid that's just the beginning, Professor. It's been merely 3 or 4 days since that occurrence, and still then, things are changing, both to me and to Tonto. He's different, or maybe not, or maybe the Mamu, like you say, holds secrets even we don't know, but he can communicate with others, he can beckon them. He healed a broken ankle of mine. I've seen him change his shape and whisk across the sky.
You see Eli stand up quite abruptly, his lunch dropping to the floor, his eyes scanning around the room, almost as if in erratic and pensive thought. And he begins to pace slightly as you say these words, thinking quite intently. But Yohm, you must understand the implications of what you are saying. You communicate with the Mamu. No one, not apart from in legend, has anyone communicated with the Mamu.
Well, actually there is one other. Kieran, that harvester that I mentioned, he, not to the same level that I can, but he too bears a connection with Tonto here. An empathetic connection of sorts. It's different than mine, but undeniable still.
This is something special, Yohm. This could change everything. So, just to be clear, if you were to speak to this Mamu here, he would respond. You could command it to do things.
I talk to him like any other, yes. He doesn't make a sound, however, but I hear him nonetheless.
Interesting. And he becomes very
acutely interested in Tonto as he moves round the desk and kneels down towards him.
And he speaks to me too. He's curious and joyful. Like a child, really.
A personality.
Developing day by day.
Fascinating. And he responds as normal Mamu do? At those words, picking up a small piece of loose bright stone from the desk and waving it very closely to Tonto's face, at which point Tonto repels and lets out a small yelp.
Tonto, I'm sorry. Professor, please. It's mostly the same effect, yes.
I see, yes. And he puts the stone back down. I would very, very much be intrigued to study yourself and this Mamu.
Maybe someday. But things are happening fast, as I said in that expedition. Everyone on the by-and-by got out unharmed, and the young apprentice, Kieran, happens to be none other than the child of the Servant Supreme of the Harvesters Guild. So, it's not gone unnoticed.
William, I would be very, very careful with what it is that you reveal to the guild.
I'm trying to be, but I need answers too. And to do something. Like I said, it's only been a few days, but the plight of the Mamu is becoming oh so apparent to me. Almost hard to ignore.
The plight of the Mamu. It's an interesting phrasing.
Well, I've only seen a little bit of their dangers firsthand.
Yes.
Maybe it's because I'm lucky. But in all of those moments, I never once truly felt in danger. I felt pity and sadness and almost a call for help. And since then, I've decided that's what I'm going to try and do.
Well, Yohm, I can't speak for your experience, though I can speak for mine. And I will certainly say, these Mamu, especially in the way that they are changing, they certainly can be dangerous. And he lifts up one of the cuffs of his trouser leg to reveal his skin underneath, which appears to be severely burnt and scarred in some way. One of the dark, twisted Mamu did this to me in the desert. And this is why I had to seek out your friend Hana for her aid.
I see.
It is perilous times, Yohm. Though I wouldn't worry too much about the plight of the Mamu themselves. They are but an extension of the great light colossus beneath us. They do not feel as you or I do. That is what makes them particularly more dangerous.
Well, Professor, I'm going to have to politely disagree with that point. I know some Mamu feel.
I don't know what you're experiencing, Yohm, but I can only assume it is a deep connection with the Colossus and the Perceiver herself. Not the Mamu, surely.
Maybe both. Maybe neither. But the Mamu are the ones that are reaching out to me. Whether that is the Perceiver, as you say, using them as messengers or not, I'm not going to pretend to know, but this a relationship between me and the little one, it's forged stronger than stone, and I know not the reasons behind it, but I know it is the right thing to do, to try and help.
And as you say these words, he stares deeply into your eyes, those hexagonal pupils Yohm now finds himself with, and says, "Tell me, Yohm, have you ever heard of the legend of the dreamer?"
I can't say I particularly have, but it does feel somewhat familiar.
Roll a history check for me.
That'll be a 4.
Yes, these words indeed seem unfamiliar to Yohm. Regardless, Eli sees this in your eyes and begins to pace around the room. You see, it is one of the oldest legends of the Book of the Colossus. It tells of one of the original few, those chosen first that walked the land, one who could communicate with the Mamu, just like you. He had the eyes of the Mamu, and his connection with them was so powerful that he could not only talk to them, control them, use them to his will, but form them. Yeah. He had the ability to grow Mamu of his own, pluck them from the ground like roots. Yohm, I think you might just be a dream maker. And he has this erratic but elated look sparkling in his eyes when he says this.
Actually, the night before that encounter, I did have a dream. Almost a dream. Someone was speaking to me. No, I cannot remember what they said.
I have no doubt that that was the voice of the great perceiver, and if it is anyone who can help you now, it is most certainly the Light Guard. Tell me, have you ever been to the mainland?
Not that I can remember, no. I know it's a little odd, but as far as I can tell, I've always been in the desert.
Quite strange for a merfolk. Regardless, Yohm, I think it is important that you and this Mamu here travel to the mainland, to the city of Morrowold. There is the Temple of Three Spires, one of our greatest temples of the Light Guard. The guards there, they hold certain secret knowledge protected by their clan. But if you show them your Mamu and what you can do, they will help you. They will allow you to understand, to hone your power fully. And you might just be able to save the kingdom.
Well, that all sounds a little bit much, Professor.
Much, perhaps, but integral. Important to the future of Sopros, Yohm.
Maybe. This dreamer of legend. What does the story say happened to them?
Well, they use their power for great good. There are many tales of the Dreammaker, traveling the kingdom, using their powers to help the people. Eventually, he found it necessary to sacrifice himself for the greater good.
A nice title, then.
Yohm, I can't begin to imagine how new and confusing and perhaps scary this has all been for you. But I have never been more certain that you have been given a unique, irreplaceable gift from the Perceiver at a time where we couldn't need it more.
On that we do agree.
Be responsible with that gift. Do the right thing. Travel to Morrowold.
Funnily enough, and you'll never believe this either, but Tonto was asking to go there. Coincidence here.
It is the Perceiver's will.
Maybe. Who knows, but things are in motion now. That is undeniable. And this calling, if you will. Like I said, I couldn't ignore it if I tried now. So Morrowold it may be. Professor, do you have any texts or scrolls of this dream maker? I'm not the most learned fellow, but I can just about read still.
And he smiles wide at you saying this. Why, lad, of course. It is all written in the ancient scriptures. Please, let me find you a copy. And he heads straight to his bookshelf, whereupon he seems to glide his finger over several iterations of the same text and pulls what looks like a pocket-sized version, bound in a green leather with gold writing on the front, and hands it over to you.
Thank you. I'll look after it.
Thank you, Yohm. I trust you will. Please, whatever it is you do and wherever it is that you go, stay in touch, will you? Right.
I shall. I've got some business to attend to here tonight in the city. But I'll be honest, the sooner I can get out of here, the better. And I have a servant supreme to entertain tonight at least.
And he looks at you with furrowed brow, very sternly once more. Remember, Yohm, careful.
say only what you must.
What are you so scared of with the guild, Professor? I admit I am a little untrustworthy of their systems of control, but they're not awful, abhorrent things.
I've had many years working with them, Yohm. And that system of control, as you put it, is precisely what I loathe. For them, it's all about what they can put their hands on and confine, seize as assets. No, I couldn't trust them.
Well, I will be careful. Rest assured on that.
Thank you, Yohm.
And please, I'm not sure how, maybe through Hana in Sunalaga, I'm not sure, but if you learn anything about this connection, or this apparent dreamer, please try and let me know.
Certainly I will. Keep me abreast of where you land in your travels, and I will get word to you.
I shall, and I know you're not a fan of the guilds, you've made that perfectly clear. And if this evening goes at all well, I might be able to put you together with Kieran. You might be able to learn a thing or two from him in my stead.
Yes. I would like that, Yohm. Thank you. Please, put me in touch.
Yes, I'll try here. You suffered a marked change after that incident. Dare I say for the better, but...
A brush with the divine improves us all, Yohm.
If it is that.
Well, farewell, Yohm.
And you, Professor. Whilst I'm gone, there is one here in the guilds, one small man to which I trust my life, and indeed the depths of these secrets. His name is Wren. He's the master of the Harvesters Guild Hall here. For whatever reason, should you need someone to trust, use my name and rely on him.
I hesitate to do as much, Yohm, but I will remember what you say about this, Wren, and perhaps find it useful.
I promise you, he's not like most of them.
Time will tell.
Well, sorry about your lunch.
And he looks to the floor where the bread and meat is scattered. I'm not feeling so hungry now anyway. A bit overexcited.
I know the feeling. Well, I must be on my way.
Certainly. Stay in touch, Yohm. May the light be with you.
And you. Come on, Tonto. We're off now. Then we stand on up. Do a last look around this room and just ponder on the sheer amount of knowledge sat within these walls. And just try to get a final gauge on Eli and how he is as a person and how trustworthy you may be, and give a kind nod, and we depart.
And absorbing all that just happened and the character of Eli himself, as you part through the narrow corridor and back out into the open air of the streets of Sunkolt. Tonto, now finding a little courage to speak, tugs upon your robe, saying,
Do you feel that went well?
Well, it didn't go badly.
Yohm, why did he hurt me? I didn't like that.
I know, I'm sorry, Tonto. He needed to find out how special you might be. And, well, for other people who can't talk to you like I can, it's a little hard for them to believe sometimes.
I see. Yohm, you told me whenever I smelled bitter, I should tell you.
Yes.
Eli smelt a little bitter. I think he is lying. But it comes from his heart.
What do you mean, Tonto?
I don't know if I know. Maybe he's lying to himself.
Maybe he's trying to cover up for something. Keeping more secrets.
Well, we'll find them out, he says as he swooshes his paws around in an animated fashion.
You're right, we will. And if we can make more friends in Morrowald, then maybe they can help us.
Are we going to Morrowald?
Well, I'm not sure yet, but maybe they might have answers. And maybe in his time, I went over those cliffs and saw a little more than just sand. I finally got someone to go with after all.
That's right. I'll be here wherever you go.
Precisely. But before that, one more meeting, eh, Tonto?
Right.
Go and meet Kieran's father.
I feel like if he is like Kieran, he will be nice.
Well, that's what Ren says. And we can trust Ren, so we'll try. It won't be for too long. Speaking of, actually, and Yohm looks up to try and find a glimpse of sunlight somewhere above him to guesstimate the time. I think it's time we go and find him, actually. Maybe pick up our clothes soon. Yes, in fact, it's time to get this over with.
and noticing the sun is about 3/4 covered by the rising moon in the sky, marking the near approach of night. It is indeed time to make your way towards dinner with the Servant Supreme. And so, over the next little while, Yohm rejoins with Clara, who by this time has fashioned a very beautiful, elegant, formal robe of gold embroidery that she assures has indeed been charmed with a certain bright stone of illumination. Though, having never done this before, she is unsure quite of its effects, though presumes it may help with your clarity and perception of people.
I thank her kindly, and assure her, should I ever be back in Sunkolt, I will come and say hello.
And she's very warmed to hear that. And upon parting, heading back towards the Harvester's Guild post to collect a very nervous but smartly dressed wren. Hair combed all the way back and buttons done all the way up. The moon now covering the sun and the evening coming on. You make your way through those upward winding cobbled streets, up and up and up through the streets of Sunkolt, near to the zenith of this ziggurat of a city. All the way along, the buildings getting slightly more fancy and ornate, the streets becoming slightly wider. The amount of people thinning out, and the kinds of people becoming more increasingly well dressed, such as yourselves. Until eventually, all three, yourself, Wren and Tonto, land at this huge manor-esque building with very many broad windows and domed iron roofs on the top. The night sky, a deep bluey purple behind it, and the warm orange lights glowing out of these windows, creating a very majestic and beautiful appearance of grandeur in front of you as you stand on this long, tiled footpath that leads to the entrance. Also noticing that you are now very high above the city, with balconies on either side in this sort of open courtyard area, where, if you wish, you could sit out and look across at the city. And standing here, looking at the building, Wren, using his palms to flatten out his collar and brush back his hair, looks to you. So, are you ready?
Well, about as much as I'm ever going to be. How bad can it be, Wren? It's just your boss.
That's right. It's just a man.
A man with a very big house.
Yes. Gosh, Yohm, I have dreamed to enter into a council hall before.
Just not with me, right?
Well, I will admit you have not previously been in my dreams, but I will take it.
Yeah. You've earned this, old friend. And anyway, if it feels a little too awkward for you, just look after Tonto, will ya? He likes you. get all the awkward pleasantries out of the way?
Certainly. I'm happy to stick with this little one.
And he sort of awkwardly attempts to brush the top of Tonto's head, who receives it very happily and gratefully.
I don't think I'm ever going to get bored of looking at you two.
And Ren, slightly confused but also slightly endeared by that statement, sort of shakes himself off, tries to psych himself up, and says, "Well, let us enter."
Yep, let's go.
And approaching the large doorway up the stone stairs, outside you'll see 2 guards who seem to be having some small altercation, an argument of sorts with a gentleman who stands in front of them. Compared to yourselves, wearing relatively tattered clothing and speaking quite broadly and openly, as if offended at these 2 guards.
No, I swear, I meant to be here tonight. It's game night. I've been invited.
No, sir, you have not. Begone with you.
No, I have. I can prove it.
And watching you come up the stairs, he looks directly to you, Yohm, as you approach. This Dwergar gentleman you don't think you've ever met before, saying,
"Oh yes, my good friend here. He invited me. Thanks for meeting me here."
And he looks pleadingly into your eyes. The guards look to you and say, "Names?"
"Oh, I am Yohm. I should be on the invite list. And this is my friend here." "Well, introduce yourself, Stoneskin. Don't make me do all the talking." As he nudges the strange new man.
"Oh, yes, yeah, Roderick. Nice to meet your acquaintance. I'm his +1.
No, +2.
I see."
And the guards scanning their eyes down the list. Their eyes seem to widen as they reach a certain point, looking back up to you and say,
"Oh yes, sir. Fantastic. Please, this way. And this is your friend, you say?"
"Yes, old friends of mine."
Very, very good, sir. Come on in."
"Thank you."
And lead the way. To which point the newly met gentleman at your side says,
"Thanks, mate. I needed that. Well, must be off. See ya."
And scarpers away before you get a chance to say a word.
I whisper gently to Tonto. "Tonto, good or bad?"
"Very, very bitter."
"I thought so." Let me carry on following.
As you follow some paces behind the guard who walks gracefully through this entrance hallway, the expense of the building you're in begins to hit you. And then as you come into the larger dining area with its ornate, plastered patterns on its roof and polished, dark, wooden floors. Golden chandeliers and velvet cushioned chairs on these wonderful broad tables covered in embroidered cloth. It doesn't strike you as quite as opulent as you might have imagined it to be, but still quite a well put together, formal area. Towards the back of which you can see a crowd of people around some sort of large table, where you just happen to notice your newly met friend at the door is heading. And from the slight sounds and jeers, well, roll me a history check.
That's a 7.
You can tell that some form of game or gambling appears to be going on at that table at the back. But you are led by the guard directly to the table, where seated is this quite unassuming man, a broad-shouldered, light-haired, fey gentleman with a long beard that comes down to the centre of his chest. And if you were to say so yourself, you think that you might in fact be better dressed than himself this evening as he sits in quite nice but rather plain white linen robes. And as he sees you approach with Ren and Tonto, he stands with a large grin, extends his hand very strongly, and says, "Yohm, an absolute pleasure." His hand held in front of you.
It's nice to meet you too, Servant Supreme.
Yohm, call me Ken.
It's nice to meet you too, Ken. Thanks for having us.
It is the absolute least I could do, honestly. Please, sit down. And he gestures to the chairs around the table.
Thank you, yes. Yohm sort of gives a last reassuring nod and a wink to Tonto and Ren before they sit down.
As you do so, noticing that Ren is very red in the face, his eyes twitching from side to side with nervousness, and Tonto very happy and in awe of his surroundings, taking a chair at the table, at which is far too high for his stature, and as you all sit down, you see merely a couple of horns, his coral horns that just poke above the tablecloth in front of you. So, have you found your time well in Sunkolt?
So far, actually, better than expected, to be honest.
Excellent to hear. Yes, I think Sunkolt has many reputations depending on who you speak with, but I find it a magical, creative city. Well, home of the Artisans Guild, of course.
And of course. And it's nice to see there's still a lot of joy to be found in these streets.
Certainly. Yes. It's every day I can be outside and find children playing or making art. It's a different culture here than where I'm from.
And how long have you been here? If you don't mind me asking.
Oh, well, this particular time, not very long. I've been here merely days, but I make a habit of coming back now and then. More so now that we are trying to establish a proper base for the Harvesters Guild, that which we've not really had in the past.
Well, I've always thought the desert was ripe for Harvesters' business.
Oh yes, plenty of business here, that's for certain.
Well, I guess I just need to ask, why did you invite me here, Ken? And I mean, here, of all places. As Yohm's eyes do a very wide arc around the perimeter of this building and the gaping roof above.
And Ken folds his arms, lets out a small sigh, and a curt smile appears on his face. Straight to the point, Yohm, I see. I don't know why I didn't expect anything less.
Well, I am a guide. My job is getting places.
Well, let's get to the point, shall we? I must be honest. First and foremost, I want to thank you for not only saving my son's life, but for the marked change I've witnessed within him. Something happened between you and him in the time you'd spent together, and I must say, he's not been the most centered, the most well-balanced child, shall we say, these last few years. But he's certainly changed, and I do owe you a big thanks. And so a dinner in a place like this, though I'm sure you're not regularly used to it, as most people aren't, I thought was the least I could do.
Well, I appreciate your sentiment. And, here I saw Kieran earlier today, in fact, and you're not wrong, it is remarkable. The introspection he's going through at the moment, I can't claim all the credit for that myself. A brush with danger does that to a lot of people.
Yes. Perhaps that mission out into the desert was just what he needed. I thought it might be. He hasn't had as much practical experience as I had growing up as a boy in the farms of Sentoki.
You were a farmer?
Well, yes, of course. I grew up in Sentoki, over there, where, as old as 6, you're sent out to the farms, given your practical skills, and led on into the Harvesters Guild life. But, Kieran never really had that.
Were you, have you always been the servant supreme, whilst his father?
No. Although, most of his life, certainly. I think he was perhaps 8 years old when the council approved me as servant supreme.
I imagine that does a lot for a boy. Seeing his father held in such high regard.
True enough. Perhaps I've never put enough onus on that.
Or maybe he just wanted to fill some very big boots.
Yes. A lot of pressure on a child, the servant supreme. Thank you, Yohm. I think that is something I should consider more of going forward. I must confess, in the spirit of honesty, The second most pressing reason I've invited you here is because, well, I have, of course, had reports from Kieran himself and the rest of the Harvesters Guild involved in your expedition. You seem to have come away with some remarkable abilities, Yohm.
Well, I think that's still up for debate, but yes, Kieran is not the only one that has changed somewhat.
It seems you perhaps have changed quite differently, quite more so.
In some ways. In others, I'm exactly the same.
And that is just what I was hoping, Yohm. Your friend, Tonto here, you still communicate with him? Or her? Or...
Just Tonto, as far as I know. But yes, we're becoming fast friends.
Amazing. You know, I used to have many Mamu friends growing up in the farms. I don't think I could, but certainly pretended I could communicate with them.
Well, that'll make two of us. I longed for it growing up. See, I lived out there all my life with one of the nomadic tribes, and as you know, we always had our own ways with the Mamu. And I would lay there at night, staring into the stars, just wishing that they'd understand me. It's funny, isn't it?
I don't think it's funny at all. I think it might be the nature of people.
Well, what do you think the nature of person will do when they receive such a gift?
I think such a gift bears great responsibility, Yohm. You must be aware by now of the serious trouble we are in with these changed Mamu across the kingdom.
Yes, I keep hearing more and more tragic tales. I almost don't want to believe it.
Unfortunately, they are painfully true. All of them. There is great danger and destruction now creeping across the kingdom. And it is of the utmost importance for the guilds and the Council of Sopros to protect the people of this kingdom. The best idea we have yet is to build the walls.
I actually have seen some of that in action myself.
What do you think to it?
I can understand why, but nonetheless I know it to be wrong. I believe, particularly out there in the smaller villages, for the nomads like I, and we'd be doomed if there were walls everywhere. And those of us that do still have at least a small relationship with a Mamu, well, we'd be lost. I know people want to protect what's theirs, but is the land really theirs? I think there are other ways. I'm no expert historian, but I know Something else must have been tried way back when. The last Great War. And I know I'm not the only one that wants this. I've shared many a chat with some rather important people lately, including Elgara. Yes, and well, I may as well just go ahead and say it. I'm inclined to believe she'd rather a different solution too. Even if we both admit we may not know exactly what that is yet. I almost feel too arrogant saying this, but I'm sure I can find one. Somewhere. With the help of Tonto. And maybe others. But these last few days, what I've seen of the Mamu, it is not that of an enemy. It's that of a victim. They need help too. And if I can get to the bottom of whatever it is that ails them, well, then we won't need any walls.
And Ken looks at you and slowly and furtively nods his head. Yohm, I was really hoping that you would be the kind of man I hoped you were. And so it appears to be. Everything you say, I could not agree more. Walls, I think, are the last thing we need for this kingdom. Else, the last great war was fought for nothing. But people are scared, Yohm. And they need hope. They need to know that there is a way, that we can help. But we can, Yohm, now, with you. And so, that is why I have a proposition to you.
Go ahead with it.
In Schwertsuna, there is probably the worst cases of these changed Mamu. They are having no choice but to build great walls and quickly to protect their people and their infrastructure. It's quite a serious situation, Yohm. But if someone with skills like yours, able to perhaps communicate with and understand the Mamu and their plight, could travel there, change them, change their spirit, like you say, get to the source of this issue, well, that would be a beacon to the whole kingdom that true change were possible. And so, Yohm, and I've discussed this with the Guardians Guild, you, on behalf of them, would leave on a blimp tomorrow afternoon, fly to Schwertsuna, and do whatever it is that you can to help the people there and the Mamu to restore hope. Will you do this, Yohm?
That's one mighty proposition there.
I know this is a lot to ask from someone who has only very recently found this all out for themselves, but time is of the very essence, Yohm, and I wouldn't ask this if
it wasn't of the utmost importance.
I'm sure you wouldn't. And I've never left the desert, Ken. I hear Schwertsuna is like a white desert, with dunes 10 times as tall. I've always wanted to see it.
I've been, Yohm. It's a beautiful place. Full of as much magic as the desert, I promise you.
And a deep history with the Mamu.
Most certainly.
I might be able to find something out about this. Forgive me, Ken. And Yohm abruptly stands up in his space. I almost forgot. I'm not the only one who needs to decide on this. Would you give us a moment?
Certainly, yes.
Tonto, come over here with me.
And Tonto's little antlers sort of wiggle about as he stands up straight in his chair and hops over the top of the embroidered cloth towards you and follows you.
We won't be long, just getting some fresh air.
Certainly, yes. I believe we have a little while before dinner is served. Please, take your time.
Thank you, and while we're gone, you might want to thank that dwerg sat there in front of you. If it weren't for him, I'd have never come here. And I turned towards one of those nice balconies we saw a little while ago.
As you turn to leave, Ren, with eyes wide, is imploring you silently not to go, out of sheer nervousness. Nevertheless, Kenhart begins to effusively thank Ren, and their conversation begins as you head out the back of the dining hall, past where people seem to be playing this game, and out into the open air, where you see the stretched balcony and this small jutting platform where one could sit and take pause, that Tonto seems to naturally drift towards as they excitedly look out at the city of Sunkolt in its full, glowing glory of the night.
Look at all the lights. Isn't it magical?
It really is. Reminds me of the old days.
Are you having a good time? I'm having a wonderful time.
I am now. It's much nicer with a bit of open air. Soak it in, Tonto. I get the feeling we might not be here for very long.
Are we going? To Moriwald?
I don't know. But I think we should go somewhere. And with that, Yohm will stand up and, to the best of his knowledge, whilst talking to Tonto, he'll begin pointing in vague directions far across the desert, far beyond the horizon. For one, we can head over there as he beckons with his left hand to Schwertsuna. That's where the dwerger originated from. So Ren's home.
Wow. Over there?
Over there.
In the desert?
No, beyond. Far beyond the desert.
Oh.
Where the rocks grow as high as the sky.
I see.
And snow falls from above.
Oh. Near the heart.
The heart?
The heart. My heart.
Sure. Near your heart.
Yes.
And then, over there, points out a particular Mamu floating off in the distance, that's glowing nice and bright. See, below that blue little dot, days and days beyond there rests a tree, apparently big enough to blot out the sun.
Wow.
And that is Morewald.
Morewald. Near the stomach.
Near the stomach. Yes. So on one hand, we have Bristjama, and people, and Mamu, who need our help.
Oh.
And on the other, we have Morewald, a sight I've always wanted to see, and apparently some secrets that we're looking for.
Well, we do want to find the secrets. We said that before.
We do.
But we also want to help people, like Hana and Ren and all my Mamu friends.
We do as well. Now maybe if we went to Morewald we could learn something. Secrets that, well, they might help us, help even more people. But then again, maybe not. Maybe we'll just become a pawn to a different group of people. It's the guild or the light guard. Never felt so popular, Tonto.
Of course you're popular, Yohm. You're such a good person.
Well, before this week I maybe had 3 friends. Now, there's at least double. But thinking of that, Hana, Ren, Grams, and they'd all go Bristjama.
They would?
Without a doubt. The secrets can wait. I don't need someone else to tell me secrets. Where's the fun in that? We'll find them. Buried in snow, deep within the mountains.
Haha.
We'll find our secrets. And we'll help people.
You know what, Yohm? I think that's the best plan.
Me too. Well, before we tell him, what do you think of Ken? The tall chap, the important one.
I like him. He smells nice.
Yeah, he's not what I expected. Reminds me a little bit of Hana, actually. It's warm.
Just like Kieran now. I knew it.
I guess you just have that effect on people. Well, what'd you say?
I say, we go to Bristjama. We go to my heart.
Yeah. That sounds nice, don't they? And while we're at it, I imagine I might be able to get the Servant Supreme to hook us up with a spinning top or 2.
Really?
Really? I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, that's the best news ever.
That's our top demand.
Yes. Spinning tops. Thanks, Yohm.
Thanks, Tonto. It really is beautiful, isn't it?
The best. Do you think Bristjama will be like this?
I'm hoping not.
And he furrows his brow, a little confused.
I want to see something entirely new. Just like you.
Yeah.
Something almost as special. Well, we're going to Brustjama.
To Brustjama.
And Tonto raises both his paws into the sky and does a little jump and twirls as he does so, gliding into the air and floating softly back down to where he stood before.
Now, just to try and explain it a little bit, Tonto. I said it's over there, but see that lump, that one right there, as far away as you can make it on the horizon.
Uh-huh.
That's nowhere near halfway.
Oh, so it's a big journey.
Oh, yes.
Will it take a long time?
Well, a little, at least. Depends how well the journey goes. You know me. I quite like to stop and smell the roses.
Yes. We should do some smelling of roses. What are roses?
A flower, Tonto.
Oh yes, I like flowers.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Say that. Something smells awfully nice.
Does it?
Aye. I think dinner's ready. Come now.
Okay.
We'll share the news.
And he rushes back into the dining hall before you're quick enough to chase after him, leaving you out in the open air just a moment by yourself.
Oh, Yohm. You wanted to see something new? Now's your chance. Go get them.
And Yohm, giving Kenhart the news, spends a pleasant evening dining with Wren and Tonto, discussing the particulars, talking about old times, having a few laughs along the way. And after a night spent at the Harvesters Guild, Yohm wakes up, preparing himself for the journey he must take. And before he makes his way to the scheduled blimp, ready waiting for him, is there anything that Yohm would like to do while he still remains in Sunkolt?
He definitely spends some of the morning, at least, walking around the lower districts, catching all of those smells and sights, and somewhat uncharacteristically, for him at least, engaging in small talk when he can with the wild and vibrant people of this desert that he loves. Really soaking it in that for the first time in his life, he's going to say goodbye to this place and these people, these oh so wonderfully practical and pragmatic people who say it how it is and who take every day as it comes. And he feels gratitude for being part of all of this and being shaped in such a way, trying to convince himself that he is befitting of his newfound status and position. And he definitely makes sure to find one of them silly spin tops. Otherwise it might be a long journey without it.
Yohm has a wonderful morning, indulging himself in the atmosphere and culture of Sunkolt, meeting as he goes very many people, artisans, craftsmen, regular folk lived there all their life, all who have a story to tell. Yohm happy to lend an ear, picking up a couple of spinning tops along the way at a reasonable price, and filled up with the true passion and spirit of the desert on this morning trip. He finally makes his way up to the mid-tier of the city to stand upon the launching platform, where sits the huge blimp that is ready to take him over towards the Schwertsuna region. It stands humming gently on the ground, near ready to take off. And as you and Tonto approach the door, by it stands a guard whom you recognize from before as the one who denied you entrance from the other side of Schwertsuna. And he looks at you approach with a very subtle grimace and a clenching of his jaw.
Excuse me, guard. I believe you're in my way.
And he very begrudgingly steps aside and waves a hand to enter inside.
And just remember, if you want to board, you can leave the bad mood down here.
And although this guard is quite heavily armour-clad, with a helmet exposing only a little of his face, you can still clearly see his cheeks go bright red from this statement. And he simply looks away to the ground and says, "Yes, sir."
Please, just call me Yohm.
An unexpected statement from him as he looks up and gives you a somewhat inquisitive look. And you head inside of the blimp, ready to take you to new lands. Unique, wonderful and mysterious places yet to be discovered. As the blimp whirs into action and raises up and up and up into the sky. And as you look down on Sunkolt below you, what are Yohm's thoughts as you head towards Schwertsuna?
Maybe Eli was right. I'm flying. come true. He looks down at Tonto and just smiles, full of gratitude. Because no matter how strange these last few days have been, they have been oh so special. And it's just about maybe the sort of story that Yohm would love to tell. Seeing it all from way up here, and that almost playground of sand beneath, which he spent so many years sliding and crawling around. It all seems so small now. And he looks forward to the day he'll see it again. But that's not for some while yet.
And with one last look down, as Sunkolt and the desert below him disappears behind a veil of cloud, and the blimp rises into the blue sky, the sun and moon above, sailing in a sea of white mist. Yohm and Tonto sail forth into a new adventure.